Meanwhile, we are getting industry perspective as well. Anish Shah is president at FICCI and he's Group CEO and Managing Director at Mahindra & Mahindra. It's great to have you with us, Mr. Shah. Your first thoughts on the budget and how would you rate it if you were given a scale of 1 to 10?
I think this is a very thoughtful budget. I'd look at it as an excellent one because it balances growth, inclusion, as well as fiscal discipline. On an overall rating, I would give it a very high rating of 9.5 because it manages to balance all these things really well.
Well, you know, fiscal prudence, Mr. Shah, that was the key highlight of the budget. But this fiscal prudence can have a deflationary impact as well. Do you think the Indian economy at this stage is now ready to, make these trade-offs with a certain amount of confidence? Or you think this could take, in some way, limit the kind of growth that we are aiming for?
I think we are. I think India is growing well. And it's more important to show long-term growth in this case rather than something that's a short-term or a populist measure. And from that perspective, I think this is a very good budget that balances all those aspects extremely well. Fiscal prudence not only at 5.1% this year, but also being able to get down to 4.5%. That's essential for the economy to grow at a pace that is the right pace and that is sustainable over time. We are growing well. We are seeing good demand creation. The government capital expenditure has been strong. We are seeing a growth again this year. And private investment has been a little weaker. Our sense is that it will start coming in as we see the continued demand momentum, as well as see deleveraged balance sheets from companies. So all in all, I would say this is a very good long-term budget. And that's important for the economy. That's really when economics trumps politics from a budget standpoint, and that's something that is very good for industry.
It's good for industry. Tell us what's good for rural India from the kind of announcements that have been made for the farmers, for the poor. Do you think enough has been done to spur rural consumption?
I think rural is on a strong footing overall. And while, again, we may see some short-term measures, and if I look at the tractor industry as well, this year it will likely be flat to negative 5%. But if you look at it over a 3-year period, it has grown really well. And there's a solid momentum behind it. So we really don't see rural India in bad shape. I think it's in a good shape. And we believe that, again, populist measures or short-term growth measures are not the right ones to take in a long-term growth economy. So if you look at the overall picture, this is a budget that's positioning India well to meet its Viksit Bharat goals. And for that, there are a number of things that are being done to ensure that India will benefit from creating an economy that survives and thrives in the long run. Let me give specific examples. One is a focus on innovation. That's not going to have an immediate impact, but that focus on innovation is going to help us make better products, make world-class products in India that we can export and really have the Make in India story be very strong. And that's going to help us drive our Viksit Bharat goals. If we need to meet these goals, manufacturing has to be 16 times what it is today. And for that, all of these steps are required. So therefore, once again, I'd look at it as this is a very good budget that positions India well for its growth trajectory that it needs. It stays away from short-term populist measures, and that's really the place that we should be.
But Mr. Shah, we've spoken about a glass half full kind of scenario. Let's talk about the glass that's half empty as well. Industry would have definitely liked more announcements on manufacturing, certainly more on capex. What do you make of the quality of expenditure that the government has planned as presented by the finance minister in the budget?
See, capex is still growing double digit. And if we look back over time, the last 3 or 4 years has shown a much greater growth in capex. So you're right that the pace has slowed, but the pace is still higher than what it's been in the past. And a double-digit capex growth is very healthy for the economy from a government standpoint. Private capex has been weaker in the last 2 or 3 years, and it is time for private capex to come in and step up and make up that difference as well. So this is one where, again, it's something that has to be sustainable. I don't think the sunset really impacts industry a whole lot. The other measures that have been put in, like the R&D...
To perhaps hear more about this time.
I'd say the one standout is the incentives that will enable states to drive stronger reforms in terms of making business easy. India is at a junction when the world is looking at India today. And the central government has done a number of things to be able to attract investors, to be able to enhance their confidence in India. At times, that has not been matched by states across the country. And this is one measure that will make it easier for folks to come in. This is India's time. We have to be able to attract foreigners to come in, to be able to invest in India, to be able to put manufacturing plants in India. We are seeing geopolitics shape the world in a very different way. And there are many companies around the world that we talk to are looking at alternatives to China. And India is clearly a large alternative, and it is being positioned very well. So this is one measure where if the states start pushing as hard as the center is today to be able to attract that investment, to create a playing field that is easy for business, that's going to make a huge impact. And therefore, that's one measure that I would look at as the one that I like the best. In terms of your second question, I think it's tough to say that there's one specific area we should have got something more in, because it usually is in terms of here are the SOPs that we would have wanted. And I go back to what I said earlier, that this is a budget that's focused on economics, not on short-term political SOPs that sometimes we've seen budgets do. And that is a very important aspect that should be highlighted. And therefore, you're not going to likely see SOPs in specific areas that one might want. But on balance, that's positive for the economy.
Appreciate your candor, Mr. Shah. But before I let you go, let me also ask you about the Finance Minister and her speech where she spoke about the foundation for Amrit Kal, Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. And there would be further sunrise sectors as well. What's your assumption on when we do become Viksit Bharat? What could be those sunrise sectors?
So renewable energy is going to be a key part of the sunrise sectors. We've got semiconductors, we've got electronics, we've got electric vehicles coming in. Yes, that's part of the automotive sector, but with electric, there's a certain aspect of software that comes in with it. IT services is one that I wouldn't call a sunrise sector. It's been there for a long time, but with Gen AI coming in and the various changes we are seeing, we're going to see the IT sector evolving as well in many ways. So I think there are many different levers that India will have for growth. In terms of numbers, in terms of when we hit 7 trillion, I think there are various forecasts out there, so I'm not going to add to those forecasts. I would just say that India is on a very solid growth path. I do believe that India will grow 8% next year, which is something I've said earlier, and that will create a continued momentum, sustained long-term growth, which is what the big positive is.
Thanks very much for joining us with your candid comments on the union budget, the interim budget presented by the Finance Minister today. We will keep tracking all the kind of comments that are coming through. And of course, there have been plenty of them, Mr. Shah. Appreciate you joining us on ET Now. Also with